Yeah, YouTubers, Tasman here, bringing you another episode of Learn JavaScript using Foundry. And in our last episode, we talked about nested loops and a tiny bit about accessing an array using using a loop. So I did also say, as a bonus, possibly in this episode, I would show you kind of the star thing that I was going to make a right triangle, and it kind of failed. But I did do it. I don't know what I did wrong in the last episode, but basically this is kind of, it seems to me logically that this is basically the same thing we had. So we have our let I equals 1. Then we're checking if I is less than 11. So our last one will be 10 long. And then we're incrementing I. Then we're doing let j equal 1. Then we're saying j less than equals to I, because we want it, you know, the first iteration, if I is 1, if I did less than 1, j wouldn't output anything. So we want to use the equals there, and we want to check if it's greater, less than or equal to I. If it is, then it'll go in loop, and then we're going to increment j. Then we're simply going and saying stars, and we're adding or appending, I guess, concatenating stars together. Then we're simply outputting it, and then we're clearing stars for the next line. So as you can see, if I run this, we get this fancy little right triangle. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is our last one. So we get this nice little thing. So what we're going to talk about now is the for in loop. Now the for in, the for each, and the for of, these might all be a lot shorter, so we might be able to get through all three of these a little quicker. I'm not sure. I'm slow at typing, so it could take forever all the same. So let's go ahead. I'm going to, just as a precaution, I'm going to go ahead and take my console log and put it down here as well, just so we have these nice little spaces between our different things. Makes it a little easier to separate where the new thing starts. So let's go ahead. That should be there. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with our for in loop. And a for in loop is generally if you want to loop through the properties of an object. Now we haven't talked a ton about objects. We did a tiny bit at the beginning, and we're going to do it throughout this course, or throughout these videos quite a bit. So if you don't understand everything going on, once again, this is the type of thing where we're just trying to explain the looping, not necessarily the object itself. So I'm going to write, actually, because I'm a slow typer, I'm going to copy from my notes that we use these type of loops, the for in loop, loops through the properties of an object. So we're going to create an object, right? We're going to go const, we're going to create a constant, and we're going to call it person, person. When I do type fast, I'm guaranteed to really mess things up. And then we're going to use the opening curly brace and the closing curly brace to say what is within here is our object. So we're going to do first name maybe and a colon, and then we're going to say what the first name is. We're going to say T4ZZ. Of course, that's not really the first name of me, but that's okay. And then we're going to do L name, and we're going to do a colon, and we're going to say what the last name is. We'll do M4NN. Then we're going to do a comma, and we're going to do, let's do H, right? So let's do AGE, and we'll go ahead and do a colon here. And we'll go ahead and say 50, because I'm 50 years old now, as of July 15th. And then maybe job. Let's do job, colon, and I am a senior systems administrator, so I'm just going to say admin for my company. So this is an object. Now, sometimes you might see it on one line. You can also break these up and, you know, basically put them kind of like this to make it more legible. You can hit enter on the comma, and Java is not going to care. And if we even wanted, we could do that to make sure that we get our final thing lined up, because it's always nice to have that. And in fact, we could even, you know, do that, and that brings everything to here. That is the slow way of doing that. Let's do it the faster way. So it's your choice. You can actually create objects, you know, one giant long line, or a lot of people like to do this so that it's a little more logical as to what it is. Each property, so this right here is the property, this right here is the value for said property. The comma says that after this follows the next property. We don't necessarily need a comma on the last one because we don't have any more properties. However, Java is not going to cry and whine if you have a proper, you know, if you have a comma at the very end. Just generally, you don't need it. But if later on I'm going to add more properties, having that already there, I don't have to, you know, if I come in here and I didn't have that there and I wanted to say something else like maybe likes, you know, a food, and say spaghetti. I can't spell spaghetti, so I'm going to say pizza. Pizza, something like that, because I really like pizza too. This would actually cause an error because it doesn't know what this is. So if I have the comma there, it's going to know that, hey, the next thing following is going to be property. So do it however you want. You know, if you want to always have that comma there, just so if you have to add something, you don't have to remember to go put the comma, you're going to be fine. So I'm just going to show you real quick. If I don't have that comma there, one, I'll get the little X here saying that it's expected that something's missing here. It is expecting the close brace or whatever. Instead, it saw the word likes and it's missing the semicolon. It has no idea what to do with this. So simply having that comma there, and like I said, if you have it there, it's going to make it plenty happy. So now that we have an object, what we do with the for in is loop over the values right here, the properties, right? So it's not going to know what any of these are, but it is going to be able to loop over the properties. So let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to say for, and it's a little different type of for that we're going to do. So we're going to say let, and this is what each of those properties are going to be. So I'm going to use P, for example, for each piece or property of person. So, and then I'm going to say let P in, and I'm going to say in person. And that's it. That's all you really have to do to loop over the properties, right? If I hit enter, and now if I console log, for example, that value, so if I say console log P, we'll actually get back F name, L name, age, job, and likes. It won't give us any of the actual values, but it will give us what the properties are. So let's go ahead and do that first, and then we'll modify it to make it better. All right, so let's go ahead and say console. I need to spell it right. Console.log and parenthesis. And because we're going to be modifying this later, I'm going to actually do it in our fancy ticks here. And I'm going to do P, kind of like that, right? One semicolon there. And if we go ahead and run this, we'll see we got F name, L name, age, job, likes. Well, you might be thinking, why on earth would I need that? That seems like the least useful thing I could have. But remember how we accessed elements with the array up here? We said lang 0, lang 1, lang 2, lang 3, and that accessed the values. Well, we can do the same thing here with our person object. We can say person, and we can access that individual property. So let's go ahead, and we're going to kind of access this almost the same way we would with the with the array. So we're going to go ahead and put a colon here, and then we're going to do another string here and this, and then we're going to do PERSON, and we're going to kind of say array, P, array, kind of like that, and we need a close squiggle, like I show. And this will now, because we're doing person, and we want to access the object's element of whatever P is. So the first time it's going to be person first name. Now another way we can do this, I believe, don't quote me on this, but let's try this. I think we can do it like this. Let's try that, because this is how I would access it. You know, if I wanted to access one of these things, for example, I wanted to access what my job is, I could do console.log, and I could do open parenthesis, and I could do PERSON and do .job, right, like that. Job. I really like jobs. So we run this. I believe this should work the same, but usually for clarity, to make it a little clearer, sometimes they do the brackets. So let's go ahead and run that and see if we get an error. Nope. So there you go. We got admin, and here we're getting undefined. So obviously P is what it's trying to look up, and it's not actually replacing that with our value. So in our little thing here, we definitely do want to have it like this. We want to have bracket, not double bracket. Oops, I hit F12 again. Where are we? Get rid of that one and go ahead and do our other bracket here, like so. And I believe, just to show you, if we copy this line, what was it, Shift Alt down, we can actually do it here like this. It really wants me to do that there. So this will actually, we should see admin if I'm correct. I'm going to just do a blank console log after that. So let's go and clear it, go and do that. No, actually we're getting an error. I maybe that's because here it's thinking it's an array. Here, because it's inside of the for in, it's not. I'm not 100% sure. Job is not defined. I wonder, oh, I bet you, I think I remember it has to be in single quotes like that. Let's try that one. Execute. There we go. Now I got admin, so we're good there. And there's some weird logic why it has to be in quotes and stuff. I don't necessarily know all that. I just know that you can substitute the dot job with kind of like you're accessing an array element. However, job has to be in strings, you know, double, single, or whatever strings. So that's that, and you can see here now we got first name Taz, last name Man, age 50. So we're getting exactly what we want. So that's one thing. That's the for in. As you can see, it's way easier than if I were to actually do console log and try and access all this stuff manually. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to, this is why I stuck this here, so I could keep duplicating it. And let's delete that just to keep it a little clean. Let's go ahead and talk about the for each now. Now, technically, the for each is not really a for statement at all. And earlier, at the very first episode, when I was talking about basic loops and we started talking about the for loop, I said we're going to talk a little bit about functions later on. But it's just for the explanation of this type of loop. So an array has what's called a method on it, which returns the values of the thing, and it'll automatically iterate through it. Now, these are actually considered iterators. Our for in technically is kind of an iterator. It's iterating over, maybe that's probably a better way of saying this. It's iterating over the loop. or over the object. ERAT. I'm just going to leave it loop for now because technically they're the same thing. And I'm going to call them iterators sometimes. I'll call them loops other times. So it doesn't matter that much. So we're going to do the for each. And what this is going to do is it's a built-in function of arrays. Because if we were to try and do this same type of thing over an array, it doesn't actually give you the results you want. It kind of does, but every time I've done it, so let's do, for example, our langs array. And let's do for, and we'll just do let just one lang instead of all the langs. Then we'll do in langs. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I move my control C. There we go. So we're going to do in langs, and then we're going to try and output our lang, right? So if I say, let's go ahead and say console log. Let's do it this way. Control C and Control V. And here we could do lang. And oops, not. This will be langs. I could just do langs. That was a bad example again with lang. Shame on me. So if I run this, I think everything's right. You'll see we get these weird things. So it actually is outputting it, but then we get all this weird stuff. And I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but an array is not the best way to use the for in loop. We get this extra junk, and like I said, I'm not sure exactly why it does that, but it does do that. So I'm going to actually just delete this. In fact, I probably didn't need the console log right there. In fact, let's just do this and move this up right to here. And we're going to do, I'm going to call it array. So you remember it's an array. And then it's a dot for an uppercase EACH. And it's actually a method. What this is going to do is it's going to loop over an array and return three things. So, and this is why we need it inside kind of a function to get those three things. So let me look at my notes real quick, make sure I'm using the right examples. So what it's going to return, and I'm actually going to just put this in other things so we know. I'm going to say RETURNS. So the first thing it's going to return is going to be the value, right? So it's going to return the value. I'm going to put this in parentheses, VALUE. And it doesn't have to be called value. It's just the first thing that is going to be passed to our function will be a value. Now that probably doesn't make sense, but that's okay. The second thing it passes will be the index. And the third thing will be the array itself, which, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure why that is useful, but it does it. So, and once again, this is a really short one also for writing it. So what we do, for example, with our langs, we would do LANGS, and we do a dot, and we do our for each, for EACH. Where are we at? We're at 18 minutes. And because it's a method, we do that. I'm going to go ahead and add the semicolon here. Now, we haven't talked about functions, so this part, just take it with a grain of salt, because I don't want to go into great detail what I'm doing, but this is creating an anonymous function. It's a function without a name. So it's just instantly calling a function. Once it's done, the function gets deleted basically from memory and it's gone. So like I said, just take it with a grain of salt. So we're going to type FUNCTION, kind of like we did up here, right? We have our function, but we gave it a name, but in this case it's anonymous. It doesn't have a name. But then we have the open and close parentheses that will have the properties or the values or the I can't ever remember all the things. And then as the open and closing brace. So we're kind of going to do that exact same thing here. We're going to say function, and here we have the option of whatever we want. So we can say the first thing we put in is going to be the value. So we could say V. We could say whatever the actual value might be, like the language or whatever. If we end it there, that's all it's going to care about. It's not going to care about the index and array, even though those are being passed into it. So we could do V for value, maybe. We could do I for index. And we could do A for ARR, maybe for array. Or A for array, I don't know. And then, of course, we're going to have our opening, closing curly brace. So I'm going to hit enter on that, and this is what the function is going to do. So just like we have our function here, when this is called main, it does whatever is in here. When it's done, it's done. So here we're doing our thing. Hopefully this makes sense. And what we're going to do is we're going to simply output, we're going to console log each of these elements. So let's go ahead and we will say, I think we want to do maybe index first, because that's going to be the index of the thing. Now, when we get into maps, they're kind of like arrays, except instead of having a zero base index, you can actually define the index, kind of like you have here with a person. And F name would be the index, Taz would be the value, L name would be the index, age would be, age would be the index, 50 would be the value, so on and so forth. We're going to get into maps later on. So let's go ahead and just do a console dot log. And let's use our magic ticks so we can actually have our values just all in there nicely. I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to have all three values in there, so I'm just going to quickly do those, and then we'll fill in the stuff between them. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to have our index, and then maybe a colon to say, hey, this is our index. I don't know. And then we're going to have our value next, and maybe let's do, let's do a minus, something, a space type of thing, and our array. So now if I run this, this is actually going to get the value, which is just being passed an actual value. We're letting it assign it to V. It's going to get the index, which will be assigned to I, and it will get the array assigned to A. We don't, like I said, we don't have to use all these. In fact, rarely do I actually ever use the A part. Mostly, if I want anything, it would be the value or maybe the index. But 90% of the time, it's just the value. So if we run this, let's go and clear it out, and we run it. You'll see here we got 0, which is JavaScript, and here's our array. JavaScript, C++, Python, PHP, and C#. And you'll see it's just a comma separated list. So I guess if we wanted to create another array, we could do it really easy with that. I don't know. And then our second one, value number 1, or index number 1 is C++. You can see that's actually index number 1 here, so on and so forth. So there you go. That is the for each. Let's see, what are we at? We're at 23. Let's go ahead and do the for of. Because the for of is similar to the for in. However, it only works on an iterable object. So it has to be something that can be iterated through. So let's go ahead and do this, and maybe right here, go ahead and enter, boom, boom, and we will do for of, like so. And maybe, how did I do it before? Just parentheses? Yeah. And this is going to loop through the value of an iterable object, such as arrays or something. So let's go ahead and do this. All right, so let's let's use one of our examples. You know, we haven't, I don't think we've used our nums at all, have we? Let's see if we have. Because if we double click it, we'll actually highlight all of them. We created this nice nums array, but then we just used counting to actually create the same thing. Let's do this with our nums array. So we're going to go ahead and let me move to this, to our for of information right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and use our of array. So we're going to say for, and just like our for in, this is going to be the same. We're going to say let, and I'm just going to use n for nums. Actually, let's do num. It's a single num out of the nums, right? Nums. So this is going to be a num, and we're going to say of, it's lowercase, and nums, right? So we're going to say of nums. And then we'll simply output those values. So here we'll go ahead and say con sole dot log and parenthesis, and it's pretty obvious what these are. Let's just do num. I think that's all we need. So there we go. That's it. So this will go through and it'll iterate through our array of numbers, and it will output each number and continue until it hits the end of the array. So it's kind of nice because you're not having to say, yeah, I want the length of the array. It's a quicker way of doing that. Now this will also any iterable object. So if it's an object that's iterable, it will be able to do this. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. Looks good there. So let's go ahead, clear, and run. And if we go down, there we go. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that worked perfect. Now, another thing that we can do with this, because there is a, I don't remember if I mentioned this, but a string technically is an array. If I have, let's just call it message. Let's do, do I want const? Yeah, const, const, and I'm going to say message. And let's say JavaScript or something. JavaScript. We can use the for of to loop through our quote unquote array of JavaScript. Now, just to show you this as an array, I think I can do this. I'm trying to think if I've done this in, I know I've done it in Python. Let's see if it works here. So if I wanted to access, say, an individual element, let's do console.log. This may or may not work. I just barely thought of this part, so I don't know if it's going to work. Let's say we wanted the letter S, right? So let's do 0, 1, 2, 3, and it is number 4. So if we do MESSAGE, I'm just not sure if we can access each of these array elements like that. Now I know we can with the for of, but let's see if we can do this. So we want 4, right? So this should return an S if I did it right, and if it can do it. Like I said, I know Python can. So let's go ahead and clear it and execute. When we get an error, so it does not. Did I make sure I didn't type something wrong? Oh, message, const message. I'm smart sometimes. Let's see. Oh, it did actually work. Good. Although is that a lowercase s? I don't know if that's a lowercase s or not. Let's put an uppercase X next to it and see if that looks like it changed it to lowercase. So let's do message for plus S. Now that looks like it's uppercase. No, that is lowercase. That's actually interesting. Oh no, what am I thinking? I was thinking I did JavaScript like that. It's supposed to be lowercase. I'm a dummy sometimes. There we go. Now it's an S. I was like, why would it change the case? I mean, we're going to talk about that kind of stuff later, but I've been recording this too long, I guess. So now that we know we have JavaScript and we can access these quote unquote array elements, so we could actually create our own word. Like if we wanted sit, that would be 4. There's 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we could do something like this. Control C, do Control V, and put pluses here, and a plus here. This is a really good way to make a word. So this was 4. So that's 5, 6, 7, and 9. So let's do 7 and 9. Let's see if that works. Look at that. We got sit. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So anyway, let's go ahead and iterate over our string, which is an iterable, technically it's an iterable object or an iterable array. So we would do the for of for that. Let's go ahead and we're going to, let's do 4, and let's do M from message of message, and console log M, right? Console log and do M. So like that. And if we run that, let's go clear it, run that, you'll see we got JavaScript. Pretty fancy. See, I did JavaScript right there. I think the reason because when I ran it, I was looking at this JavaScript and it was uppercase. All right, so there we go. There's our for of iterating over a string, which is actually an iterable object because it's kind of an array. Now we can't actually change a value. We couldn't say message for equals, something else, because it's a string is non-mutable or mutable. It can't be mutated. I think that's all I wanted to cover in this. So with while and do while, like I said, you can actually have nested loops, and probably I'll actually say that in those episodes because it doesn't make sense to say it now, but we won't actually go over nested while and do while, and really doesn't make sense for me to tell you that here since we're not talking about those. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end it here before I say too many more dumb things. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. Aside from that, comment, like, and subscribe. Click the notification bell, and follow me on Twitter. Check out my Discord and my other channels. Tell other people about my channel. I'm check it out. If I like what they see, they can sub. Grow the channel, and everyone's happy. And that is it, my friends. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.